Elon Musk reveals divine justice secret that shocks Millionaire and Black Beggar with Donald Trump. The city held its breath. Screens flickered everywhere. Corner stores, subway stations, tangled wires on the grimiest streets, broadcasting the headline screaming in blaring red. Elon Musk reveals divine justice secret that shocks Millionaire and Black Beggar with Donald Trump. People paused mid-step, fingers frozen over their phones. Jaws dropped like they'd swallowed a stone. What? Elon Musk, the titan of tech? And alongside Donald Trump, the man who never shies from the spotlight, sharing some secret? Some divine justice no one saw coming? The buzz was electric, almost violent, slicing through the city's usual roar. Glittering skyscrapers loomed in the sharp late afternoon light. But down below, in shadowed alleys and cracked pavement, a different story murmured. A story of pain, anger, hope, and fear. On the grimy concrete, slouched against a crumbling wall, swallowed by graph. His eyes burned, caught between disbelief and a flicker of something darker. Curiosity? Dread? His breath hitched. The city was a beast, its lungs full of smoke and dreams. But Marcus lived on its underbelly, where light was a rumor. Above, on a dazzling stage etched with screens, James Carter, the billionaire genius nobody shut up about, stood stiff. His voice cut through the noise, raw and urgent. "We've been blinded by our ideas of justice," he said, sweat dripping down his jaw. "It's not what we think. It's something deeper." People gawked, muttered, questioned. Powerful suits watched from velvet seats, eyes cold, fists clenched. Carter's words threatened their iron grip. Scene. Back in the streets, Marcus's mind tumbled. Wild memories dragged him beneath the surface. Fractured family dinners, betrayals whispered in dark corners. The last time trusting someone meant losing it all. A voice inside him screamed, what if this was his shot? But shadows twisted behind his eyelids, clutching. Could he break free? Was he even meant to? At the heart of the city, rumors spun fast as wildfire. What if Marcus, the ragged figure no one noticed, was somehow tied to Carter? What if that secret ripped open the city's bleeding wound? The mega corporations, the politicians, the media empire, they'd fight like rabid dogs to keep their world the same. And Carter? He was on the front line, exposed, defiant. Then the bombshell dropped, shaking the ground beneath them all. Marcus was the lost heir to a fortune so vast it could remake or destroy the city's fragile balance. A gasp rippled through crowds. Eyes darted, whispers grew sharp and frantic. Marcus felt it in his chest. It was like his ribs cracked open, spilling confusion and fire. Two men on opposite sides of the divide, linked by blood and secrets neither could ignore. Their stories smashed into each other, stirring the city's boiling blood. Success, worth, redemption, everything was being rewritten in the blinding glare of truth. But just when the dust began to settle and hope peeked through the cracks, the city held its breath again. More secrets whispered in the dark, more choices looming like knives. What would they decide next? And who would stand beside them when the storm hit? Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important warning. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube removed their subscriptions without notice. Take a quick look at the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I don't want you to miss any exclusive content that's coming. And since you're here, drop a powerful like. That really helps me with the algorithm. Oh! And let me know in the comments, what city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's interact. The city held its breath again, unsettled and alive. Whispers darted like shadows through the crowd, and tension crackled in the air. Marcus felt the weight of 1,000 eyes on him, each gaze pricking at the thin veneer of hope he'd clutched. What did it mean to inherit a fortune? The term slithered inside, rich and heavy, yet it felt like a shackle more than a blessing. He could feel his heartbeat drumming in his ears, drowning out the noise. His life, in a flash, flashing before him in dizzying confusions. Before he could process anything, the ground shook. No, quaked. A loud bang shattered the tension, echoing like a cannon. People stumbled, gasped, their eyes wide with fear. A faint plume of dust puffed up from the street, swirling ominously in the fading light. "What the hell was that?" someone yelled, panic igniting quickly, spreading like wildfire. His stomach dropped. Was this another corporate game? Or worse, a warning? Suddenly, a figure bolted past him, weaving through the chaos. It was Carter, his expression twisted with urgency, darting towards the epicenter of the commotion. "James, wait!" Marcus shouted. But the billionaire was already swallowed up by the crowd. And then the unimaginable happened. A loud crack tore through the air, sharper than before, and the sky above them darkened as if night had decided to fall early. A massive billboard, one of those obnoxious ads for luxury cars, collapsed, crashing down onto the pavement with a deafening roar. Glass shattered, metal crunched, and chaos erupted. People screamed, scattering like leaves caught in a storm. Marcus stood frozen, his legs refusing to move. What the hell? But amidst the chaos, a sound escaped from the confines of the wreckage, a low, almost inhuman groan. Every instinct screamed for him to turn and run, but his curiosity held him captive. What was that? Suddenly, amid the dust and confusion, a figure emerged from the ruins. It was bloodied and bruised, but unmistakably, there was something familiar about it. Marcus squinted through the haze, heart in his throat. The silhouette shifted, and just as a gust of wind blew away the dust, clarity hit him hard. "Dad?" he whispered, disbelief hanging like the thick cloud above. It was his father, the man whose absence had writhed painfully in every memory he clawed to forget. The very man who had vanished when life had taken a nosedive. The very face Marcus had dreamt of confronting, feeling every emotion possible crumble against his chest, now surged like a tidal wave. Noise fell away into silence for a heartbeat. And then the chaos came rushing back. People rushed to help, cops pushing through the crowd, sirens screaming now closer than ever. Marcus felt dizzy, each heartbeat punching in his ears. His old life was tumbling back like confetti in a storm. "Marcus, You have to listen, his father gasped, cut off by the frantic energy around them. But chaos was already rekindled. Shadows closed in as strangers grappled with the familiar horror lurking atop the streets. The city was alive now, with uncertainty twisting in their hearts. Who was Marcus now? A lost heir? A beggar? Or something more? He felt the divide stretching between who he used to be and who he would have to become. Would he collide with his past, face the truths haunting him? And just as he braced for the tempest ahead, his father's voice rose above the din like a ghost from the past. It's not just you, Marcus. You have to know about the inheritance and about Carter. An icy shiver raced down Marcus's spine. What did Carter have to do with this? The storm had only begun. Now he was caught in a whirlwind, feelings racing, questions blasting against his mind. The truth loomed, darker than even the ash falling from the wreckage. And as the ground trembled beneath his feet, he braced for the upheaval it would bring. The air thickened, charged with electricity, a stillness that stung. Marcus could feel eyes burning into him as the weight of Carter's revelation hung heavy. The whispers twisted in the streets, his life flipping like a coin tossed into the unknown. Could it be true? Was he really connected to some vast empire he barely knew existed? Before he could collect his thoughts, a siren's wail sliced through the air, sharp and urgent, crawling closer until it was practically buzzing in his ears. A black SUV screeched to a halt near the stage where Carter stood. The door slammed open, and a figure emerged like an avatar of chaos, all black suit and wild determination. It was Lena, a journalist with a knack for digging up dirt. She looked frantic. "James," she yelled, voice high and tight, "you need to see this." Carter's face shifted, a flicker of concern breaking through his bravado. "What is it, Lena?" The crowd shifted, confusion fluttering like crows taking flight. She held up her phone, fingers shaking. "I just got an anonymous tip. About you," she gasped, breathless. "And Marcus." Before anyone could ask more, Lena activated the screen. Gasps rippled through the crowd. The image displayed a family tree branching out into chaos. Names, dates, and a connection between them that no one could have predicted. Right there, nestled in the branches, was Marcus's name. But beside it was another, James Carter, the very man who'd just courageously spoken of justice. A cold sweat broke over Marcus. He stared, heart thundering. This was no coincidence. Lena's eyes darted between the two men. "You're cousins! You both share the same fortune, the same bloodline!" The crowd erupted in shock, murmurs swelling into a cacophony of disbelief. Some stepped back, as if the truth were a weapon ready to strike. Carter's expression twisted in horror. "No, this can't be!" he trailed off, grasping for words that eluded him. Marcus felt the ground beneath him pulse. Why was he just discovering this? Questions spun wildly in his mind. What did this mean for his life? The dirt and grime he lived in? What for Carter, wrestling with his desire for justice while facing this? Then came the storm. A figure pushed through the crowded streets, hurtling toward them. It was Tanya, a woman with a history they both shared, appearing like a ghost when they least expected. Her face was pale, eyes wide. "Marcus! James! You need to listen!" "What is it?" they both asked in unison, but the urgency in her tone sent chills down Marcus's spine. She took a deep breath, gasping in the cold air. "It's about your families, something you both don't know." As tension built, an explosion of sound rocked the city. Glass shattered nearby. People screamed. Panic spreading like wildfire. Fear rippled through the crowd, a tangible thing, rising into the air. "For God's sake, what now?" Lena cried, looking around as sirens wailed louder. But before they could react, a flash of light caught Marcus's eye. A brief flicker, then a barrage of smoke filled the air. Confusion reigned in chaos. He couldn't breathe. Just as quickly as it began, it all unraveled. Marcus's vision blurred in the chaos. But one thought stood out amid the turmoil. What had once been clear was now shrouded in layers of suspicion, deception, and dark truths. Each heartbeat echoed with uncertainty. What did they really know about their families? What secrets were buried there? And in that mist of panic, they stood together. Two men on the brink of understanding what family truly meant, staring at a world ready to explode, with something darker looming behind every truth they would uncover. What truths lay hidden, waiting to be dragged into the light? The air thickened, charged with electricity, a stillness that stunned. Marcus could feel eyes burning into him as the weight of Carter's revelation hung heavy. The whispers twisted in the streets, his life flipping like a coin tossed into the unknown. Could it be true? Was he really connected to some vast empire he barely knew existed? Before he could collect his thoughts, a siren's wail sliced through the air, sharp and urgent, crawling closer until it was practically buzzing in his ears. A black SUV screeched to a halt near the stage where Carter stood. The door slammed open, and a figure emerged like an avatar of chaos. Ow! It was Lena, a journalist with a knack for digging up dirt. She looked frantic. "James!" she yelled, voice high and tight. "You need to see this!" Carter's face shifted, a flicker of concern breaking through his bravado. "What is it, Lena?" The crowd shifted, confusion fluttering like crows taking flight. She held up her phone, fingers shaking. "I just got an anonymous tip about you," she gasped, breathless. "And Marcus." Before anyone could ask more, Lena activated the screen. Gasps rippled through the crowd. The image displayed a family tree, branching out into chaos. Names, dates, and a connection between them that no one could have predicted. Right there, nestled in the branches, was Marcus's name. But beside it was another. James Carter. The very man who just courageously spoken of justice. A cold sweat broke over Marcus. He stared, heart thundering. This was no coincidence. Lena's eyes darted between the two men. "You're cousins! You both share the same fortune, the same bloodline." The crowd erupted in shock, murmurs swelling into a cacophony of disbelief. Some stepped back as if the truth were a weapon, ready to strike. Carter's expression twisted in horror. "No, this can't be!" he trailed off, grasping for words that eluded him. Marcus felt the ground beneath him pulse. Why was he just discovering this? Questions spun wildly in his mind. What did this mean for his life, the dirt and grime he lived in? What for Carter, wrestling with his desire for justice while facing this? Then came the storm. A figure pushed through the crowded streets, hurtling toward them. It was Tanya, a woman with a history they both shared, appearing like a ghost when they least expected. Her face was pale, eyes wide. Marcus, James, you need to listen. What is it? They both asked in unison, but the urgency in her tone sent chills down Marcus's spine. She took a deep breath, gasping in the cold air. It's about your families, something you both don't know. As tension built, an explosion of sound rocked the city. Glass shattered nearby. People screamed, panic spreading like wildfire. Fear rippled through the crowd, a tangible thing rising into the air. For God's sake, what now? Lena cried, looking around as sirens wailed louder. But before they could react, a flash of light caught Marcus's eye. A brief flicker, then a barrage of smoke filled the air. Confusion reigned in chaos. He couldn't breathe. Just as quickly as it began, it all unraveled. Marcus's vision blurred in the chaos, but one thought stood out amid the turmoil. What had once been clear was now shrouded in layers of suspicion, deception, and dark truths. Then, a sound emerged from the smoke, haunting and familiar. It was a laugh. The crowd paused, eyes darting to where the noise echoed. Suddenly, out stepped a man, cloaked in shadows, carrying a briefcase. He wore a sly grin that sent ice through Marcus's veins. Thought you could hide the truth, didn't you? The stranger sneered. But it's time for a reckoning. As he cracked the case open, an object sparkled in the dim light. A familiar pendant that Marcus recognized instantly. It was his mother's, lost years ago. A part of a childhood buried under layers of grief. Your mother never told you the whole story, did she? The man's voice dripped with satisfaction. You're part of something larger, way larger. Marcus froze, heart hammering. His mother? She had kept secrets, deep ones that twisted like vines. As the implications settled in, a chilling realization washed over him. Everything he believed was suddenly in question. The connections, the fate of the city, their lives. They were bound by threads unraveling in the wind. The crowd gasped, the whispers rising again, echoing the last impact of his life before the path opened like a chasm. What lay ahead was unfathomable, but one thing was clear. They were all tied together in a game bigger than them. And suddenly, loyalty felt like a distant memory. As the chaos surged, Marcus was left standing at the edge of an abyss. An inheritance of secrets, traps, and unspoken ties pulling him further into the darkness. How deep did it go? And who could he trust when nothing was what it seemed? The city buzzed with tension, a thick fog of anticipation weaving through the streets. The air crackled, intense, almost alive. Marcus felt it deep in his bones. Just when he thought he could grasp his own destiny, something else shifted. On the stage, James Carter continued, his voice somber but powerful. Justice isn't about punishment, but restoration, he pressed, gesturing wildly, his brow slick with sweat. Each word bore weight, heavy with implications. The crowd leaned in, breaths caught. Marcus's heart raced, uncertainty gnawing at the edges of his mind. Then a rumble, a low, deep sound that began to rise, vibrating underfoot. Murmurs turned into gasps. "What's happening?" someone shouted, panic creeping in. Marcus turned his gaze skyward. The dazzling skyline suddenly marred by ominous clouds. The wind whipped past, cold and biting. Before he could process what was happening, a blinding flash erupted overhead. It wasn't a bolt of lightning, but a blast, sharp and jagged, like the crack of thunder, mixed with the anguished cries of the crowd. People screamed, stumbling back, eyes wide with terror. The screens flickered, chaos reflected in blurry faces. The city seemed to hold its breath, poised on the edge of calamity. The shockwave hit Marcus hard, knocking him off his feet. "I'm dreaming? No, this is real." Then, silence. A heavy pause filled with fear and disbelief settled over the crowd. Moments stretching like elastic, Marcus lay breathless against the concrete, heart thumping wildly. He pushed himself up, shaking his head, trying to clear the ringing in his ears. "James!" someone shrieked, pointing. Marcus followed their gaze. The stage was consumed by smoke, the billionaire's figure silhouetted against the firelight. The screens blinked back to life, a message unfurling like a dark flag. Civil unrest, a new world order. Gasps swirled like wind through the crowd. Eyes darted, questions floating unanswered. This wasn't just a show anymore. This was real life, a fracture in their utopia, the beginning of something darker. Then, amid the confusion, a figure emerged slowly from the haze of smoke. Marcus squinted, trying to see through the chaos. A woman, her face partly hidden by shadows, but he felt something familiar. She stepped forward, gripping a device that sparkled with unfamiliar technology. "Marcus!" she called, her voice slicing through the murmur like glass shattering. "You don't know who you really are." His heart dropped. "What?" he murmured, confusion washing over him, blending with the heat from the flames. The crowd was parting for her now, a path opened by whispered fears and budding rumors, all eyes glued to the stage. "I am your mother," she said, her tone firm. "And you've been kept in the dark, but it's time to wake up." A collective intake of breath swept through the onlookers. This wasn't just about fortunes or legacies anymore. The very foundation of what Marcus believed was crumbling. His mind raced, 1,000 thoughts colliding, memories spinning. Anguish choked him, a past hidden by shadows, now clawing its way to the surface. The woman's gaze locked onto his, urging him to remember. But the room spun, confusion tightening its grip. "What?" he choked out, desperate for clarity. How could this be true? And then it hit him, a tidal wave of realization. If what she claimed was real, everything he knew, everything he thought he understood about his life, his existence, was shattered like glass beneath a boot. "Marcus, ready yourself," she added, as the chaos intensified around them. This is just the beginning. The world shifted, and in an instant, all hope felt like it was crashing down again. What did she mean? And who would he become in the aftermath? The storm was just getting started. The crowd gasped, electric tension filling the air. Marcus felt the weight of 1,000 eyes on him. He stood there, heart hammering. The whispers of truth danced around him, but uncertainty clung to him like fog. He was the lost heir? No, this couldn't be real. But something dark stirred inside him, a raw pulse of anger mixed with hope. What if all those times he struggled, searching for food and shelter, what if that life meant nothing against the wealth lurking beneath his skin? Could he go from invisible to invaluable just like that? James Carter's voice cut back in, urgent and frantic. This isn't just about money, it's about who we really are. His words surged through the crowd like a tidal wave, crashing against the concrete. Was Carter defending him or rallying against him? Then suddenly, a woman screamed, piercing through the rising murmurs. He's lying! All of this is a ploy! The crowd turned, eyes wide. Dread hung in the air like smoke, twisting, choking. The woman was old, with wild gray hair and tears carving lines down her cheeks. He's not who you think! Carter faltered, the confidence in his voice fading. What do you mean? Horror washed over Marcus. He hadn't known her, but something deep inside urged him to listen. She stepped forward, trembling yet fierce. I know your mother. I met her once, years ago. Her voice cracked. She was tormented, running from a past that could destroy everything you are. Another gasp erupted, a train wreck of emotions. Shut up! Someone shouted from the back. You think you know everything? But the woman pressed on, ignoring the jeers. She made her choice to protect you. She left because she thought a forgotten son could live without her curse. Your wealth, it's not a blessing, it's a stain. What? Marcus's heart plummeted. A stain? His entire life rattled on the brink of collapse. Carter's face twisted, confusion and anger colliding. Stop! You don't know him! But the old woman's words echoed through the crowd, shaking their trust in him. Trust, the very thing he so desperately craved, wobbled on a tightrope. The air grew tense. Suddenly, chaos erupted. Loud thuds rang out, and everything seemed to explode. People shouted, shuffling back in confusion, panic igniting the crowd like fireworks in a night sky. Bottles flew through the air, smashing against walls, splintering hope. Get back! Get back! Marcus shouted, instinctively protecting himself. But through the fray, everything blurred. He lost sight of Carter, lost sight of the old woman, and then he saw it, a flash of something metallic shining under the streetlights. His breath hitched. Was it a gun? Fear tightened around his throat. Was this the moment everything broke apart? A shot fired, echoing through the dark, sharp and deafening. Chaos reached its boiling point. Screams mingled with the pounding of terrified hearts. Time froze as Marcus turned, caught between the wild panic and the truth unraveling at his feet. What had he stumbled into? His life had careened off a cliff, and now truths, half-lies, and violence crashed together in a fleeting moment of disbelief. As the dust settled, one question echoed louder than the gunshot, clear as glass. Who was he really? And would he rise from these ashes, or be buried along with them? The city trembled under a thick cloud of anticipation. charged with the electric hum of... But as rumors continued to spin, tightening their grip, he realized how fragile such hope could be. He stood, heart racing, fear coiling in his gut. Then, it happened. A scream pierced the buzzing crowd, a sharp, panicked cry slicing through the air. Every eye turned upward to the screens, flashing with Carter's image, now muddled and glitching. A split second later, there was an explosion. Not of sound, but of chaos. The monitors crackled and then shattered. Fragments raining down like broken dreams. Time froze, faces morphing from shock to horror. A figure emerged from the dust. Wild hair, frantic eyes, legs stumbling against the fixed gaze of countless spectators. It was a woman, dressed in layers of tattered fabric, clutching a weathered backpack. "Stop!" she yelled, voice trembling yet firm. "You don't know what's coming." The crowd recoiled, whispering feverishly. Was she a crazed street prophet or something more? Marcus's heart pounded as instinct pulled him closer. Something deep pulled at him, as if their fates were linked. "What do you mean?" he blurted. The crowd hushed, every ear straining to catch her words. "Carter isn't who he says he is," she screamed wild-eyed. "He's part of it. The corruption, the lies!" She reached out, her hand trembling as if her next words could shatter the ground. "He's connected to the wealth you're all chasing, but there's blood on those riches. Blood you don't want on your hands." A ripple of fear spread. Marcus felt it. The truth, if it was true, would rip apart the fabric of their dreams. Everyone held tightly to their beliefs, but vulnerability crept in, a sliver of doubt. How far could a person fall when they've relied on a false god? James Carter bloomed on the remaining screens, blurred but defined in his posture. The murmurs turned biting, accusing. "You're lying! Get her out!" Someone yelled, but Marcus was riveted, pulled between worlds, staring into the abyss unfolding in front of him. With a sudden confidence, the woman turned again, eyes locking onto Marcus. "You need to listen," she whispered urgently, desperation balancing on her trembling lips. "You're tied to this. You're not just a beggar." Silence crashed over them. "You carry the curse of a family buried in money and sins. They took everything from you, including the truth." It hit him like a punch, a swirling void of his own existence, the weight of unclaimed identity. The crowd erupted into an uproar of disbelief, anger sputtering like gunfire. "She's insane," someone shouted. But there was something unsettling glimmering in their eyes. A glint of recognition. Marcus's heart raced. Questions crowded his mind. Could he really be part of this world of betrayal? As he stumbled, the weight of the world teetered over him, blurring the lines he thought were drawn. Then, just as quickly as the chaos erupted, a flash lit the sky. A bolt of raw, unforgiving energy. A shaky gasp echoed. Something monumental swept through the crowd like a tidal wave. Before he could comprehend, the sudden impact of something striking him knocked him sideways. And as he hit the ground, his visions of fortune, hope, and belonging twisted, spiraling into the unknown. The realization washed over him. Reality was breaking. Choices loomed like jagged edges. What was left now? Wrapped in darkness, shards of betrayal glimmered in the chaos. What awaited him next? And what version of himself would rise from the ashes. The city waited, breathless, on the brink of collapse. The city seemed to hold its breath, wild chaos swirling as Marcus hit the ground. Dark shadows danced in his mind, spinning everything he thought he knew. The air crackled with tension. What was left of his old life lay shattered, dusty memories swirling in the confusion. He blinked against the chaos. Time blurred. Sounds grew distant. He pushed against the concrete, trying to get a grip. Struggling to stand, he felt the weight of every gaze upon him. Strangers waiting for him to rise, to be something. They wanted answers. He wanted answers, and then she spoke again, the woman dressed in rags, her voice cutting through the noise like a blade. You don't understand. Every choice your mother made, it was to protect you. The truth, it's worse than you think. What truth? His heart raced, an echoing pulse in his ears, drowning the world outside. He locked eyes with her, desperation clawing at him. What do you mean? Before she could answer, a sudden explosion erupted behind her, a deafening roar that shook the ground. Panic surged. People screamed, scattering like leaves caught in a storm. Dust erupted, billowing into the air. Marcus stumbled, fear coursing through him like fire. In the chaos, something caught his eye, flashes of movement among the frantic crowd. Then, in the dark haze, he saw a figure, the silhouette of a man emerging from the smoke, his movements purposeful. It was Carter, pushing through the crowd with relentless determination. "Get back!" he shouted, but he was too late. Another explosion shook the ground, louder this time, and something huge fell from the heights above, crashing against the pavement. The very earth trembled beneath it. A massive piece of steel, a fragment of a building, landed just an arm's length from Marcus, sending shards everywhere. The chaos rang through him. "No!" the woman yelled, her eyes wild. "This is bigger than you know. You're in danger. We're all in danger." Just as the dust began to settle, a low rumbling began again, but not from the ground. It came from Marcus himself, a deep, guttural sound of disbelief twisting in his chest. And then it hit him, each word slashing through the haze. A memory, a piece of information he hadn't realized he'd kept buried. "My mother!" he gasped, not ready for the truth. "She hid herself from a corporation, didn't she?" "Yes!" she shouted, urgency woven in each inflection. "The same one Carter is involved with. They will stop at nothing to erase you. You can't trust him." Marcus's world unraveled again. The billionaire in a black suit, only moments ago a beacon, suddenly twisted into a potential threat. Then, as if the universe itself were answering, a jolt shot through him. Carter turned, abruptly looking at Marcus, and admitted, "You have to understand. There's something I haven't told you. You weren't just lost. You were meant to become something exceptional. But that means choosing a side in this fight. A choice?" But before he could process it, the ground shook once more. The air crackled, electric and raw with power. A bright flash illuminated the chaos, revealing a figure behind Carter. A woman with a fierce gaze and a familiar face. She stepped forward, and Marcus's heart dropped. "No way!" he whispered. "Mom?" The word barely escaped his lips, choked with disbelief. Carter looked back, fear flashing across his face. "You shouldn't be here," his voice echoed, filled with urgency. "Marcus, listen, there's no time." She was shaking, fear etched into every feature. "Everything you thought you knew was a lie. We need to find the pendant. It was never just a keepsake. It holds the key to everything." Suddenly, the ground beneath them rumbled harder, and a deafening crack split the sky. The crowd screamed again, a mass of panic erupting as dust thickened the air. And just as the shadows gathered, a blinding light erupted from the pendant she held tightly in her hand. Its true power awakening, illuminating the darkness, making everything else fade away. In that moment, everything shifted. Friendships twisted. Loyalty faltered. The storm of emotions surged as the truth hung heavy in the air. Who could they trust now, when everything was suddenly upside down? What lay ahead was cloaked in question, and in the chaos, hope flickered, unstable, fragile, and desperately needed. What had he awakened in that moment? What battles lay ahead? The city felt alive, reeling in uncertainty, and every heartbeat, each yearning pulse, echoed questions that would unravel the very fabric of their world. The storm was just beginning. The city felt alive, the air thick with tension and urgency as Marcus stood, heart racing. The glowing pendant in his mother's hand pulsed with an otherworldly light, illuminating the chaos swirling around them. People gasped. Whispers ran through the crowd like wildfire. The atmosphere thickened, charged with uncertainty. Marcus locked eyes with his mother, the weight of her presence heavy as she opened her mouth to say something. But before the words broke free, the ground beneath them heaved. A rumble echoed through the streets, reverberating like thunder. And then, suddenly, the ground cracked. A deep fissure, a gash that seemed to open up in response to the tension in the air. "What now?" Lena shouted, eyes wide. Panic rippled through the crowd as they stumbled back, fear coursing through T. "It's the corporation!" Carter yelled, urgency slicing through his voice. "They're here! They found us!" But amidst the chaos, another voice broke through, loud, jarring, unexpected. It was Tanya, trembling but fierce, pushing through the crowd until she reached Marcus and his mother. "You don't understand!" she yelled, eyes wide with terror. "The truth! It runs deeper than you know!" "What are you talking about?" Marcus shot back, desperate for clarity. The noise was deafening. Yet within the storm, Tanya's words slammed into him. "There's a reason your families are connected. It's not just about money. It's about survival." She was wild now, fists clenched, emotions spilling over. "The corporation isn't just a business, Marcus. They're a syndicate. An underworld tied to human trafficking, dark secrets. Your mother fled from them." His head spun. He felt the ground shift beneath him. Not the physical tremors, but the realization that this was more than he'd ever grasped. Betrayal ran deep. Who could he trust when revelations sliced through the very fabric of their lives? "Tanya, stop!" Carter barked. "You don't know what you're saying." But the woman continued. "It's all tied together. Marcus, the pendant. It's a key, a beacon against the darkness. But it's also a target. They'll do whatever it takes to get it." The crowd surged with anxiety, voices raised in confusion, jerking back from what was unfolding. And then, just as the fear wrapped around them like chains, the sky ignited. A brilliant flash, pure white light surged overhead, illuminating the scene starkly. For a heartbeat, everything froze. Then an explosion. It blasted outward, rippling like fire through the crowd. Glass shattered, debris soared, screams pierced the air. A choir of terror rising to a deafening crescendo. In that instant, people fled in every direction, their faces blanched, masks of horror. Amid the chaos, a figure emerged from the smoke, tall, cloaked in shadows, and with an unmistakable presence. The crowd fell silent as the figure stepped forward, dragging behind them a heavy chain, its end coiled around something, someone hidden from view. "Did you really think it would be this easy?" the figure sneered, voice deep and resonant, draped in arrogance. As they stepped closer, the chaos fell away like a bad dream. The world blurred, but then clarity hit, as gasps bloomed once more. The figure was recognizable. It was someone Marcus had known, someone he thought was long gone, his father. There he stood, shrouded in danger, eyes wild. Not just fear, but anger too. Everything Marcus believed about his family twisted like a knife in his gut. "You shouldn't have come back," the figure whispered, trembling with emotion. "What are you talking about? You've been—" Marcus stammered, but the weight of his father's secrets was unbearable. The lights flickered, the crowd, still in shock, buzzed with questions. "What is happening? What does this mean?" Marcus struggled to process the layers of deceit, every revelation washing over him in waves. Friend or foe, when everything was a lie, who stood with him now? He took a deep breath, ready to confront the storm ahead. This battle was just beginning, and who they truly were was about to collide with a truth that could shatter everything. "Dad," he said, a mixture of anger and despair in his voice. "What did you bring with you?" The stakes rose. The unknown loomed. And all he knew was that something darker was coming. Something that would change everything they thought they understood. The city was alive with chaos, swirling around Marcus as he stood face to face with his father. The air was thick, charged with tension, and Marcus felt it constricting his throat. He had dreamed of this moment, yet now it felt like a nightmare. His heart raced, thumping violently in his chest. "Dad," he stammered, a torrent of emotion surging within him. "You left! You left us!" Anguish creased his brow. The crowd buzzed with uncertainty, whispers spiraling through the air like smoke. His father's eyes held a storm. "I didn't want to, but I had no choice," he replied, voice trembling. "They were coming for us, Marcus. The corporation, they don't just want wealth, they want control." Tanya stepped forward, urgency etched in her face. "We need to unite," she urged. "This isn't just your family's fight, it's bigger. They're targeting anyone who's lit to the truth." Everyone was watching, their breaths held tight in their chests, all eyes on the crumbling facade of what had been. The glowing pendant pulsed in Marcus's mother's grip, casting a warm light amidst the chaos. "We have to find the answers! Together!" She looked at her son, vulnerability shining through her anger. Marcus felt it, a spark igniting hope in the darkest corners. This was more than blood ties. This was about fighting against a system that had tried to bury their truth. "But how?" he shouted, clenching his fists in determination. "How do we fight something so powerful?" Before anyone could answer, the distant wail of sirens echoed closer, slicing through the heart of the crowd. "They're here!" Lena shouted, her eyes wide with panic. "We have to go now!" Carter was by her side, his face pale. "Gather, everyone! We need to get to safety." Marcus's heart raced. This was a moment. The end of one life, a chance for a new beginning. "Let's move," he commanded, clenching the pendant as if it held every answer he sought. The crowd surged, pushing forward in a wave of adrenaline and fear. They moved as one, breathless and desperate, each heartbeat echoing against the chaos around them. They reached a narrow alley, the air thick with tension. Marcus could feel the weight of his father's gaze. "You need to trust me," his father urged, stepping close. "This isn't just about the past. It's about what we can build together." But trust was fragile, and darkness clung to every word. "After everything?" Marcus shot back, doubts biting at him. "What are we really fighting for?" Before his father could respond, a distant roar sounded from behind, the footsteps of a storm chasing them. It was now or never. "Right here is the turning point," Tanya said quietly, her gaze fierce. "We create our future. We take all we've lost and rise." With that, they pressed on through the alley, urgency fueling their steps. But shadows lingered like ghosts at their backs, looming threats simmering just beyond their reach. And as they emerged into the unknown, a world of possibilities unfurled before them. Everything was open. But danger shimmered in the distance, fears intertwined with hope. What awaited them remained uncertain, but they all felt the push of something monumental. Would they find the truth? Or would the darkness pull them under once more? As the city hummed with life and danger thrummed in the air, one thing stood clear. The fight was only just beginning. You have to subscribe now. Don't miss what's coming next. Hit that like button now to boost the algorithm and help us keep these stories alive. Flood the comments with your thoughts and predictions about the ending. Your reactions matter, and share this video instantly with at least 5 friends who need to see how this all ends. Don't wait even a second longer to share. Join us in this wild ride.